You may or may not be aware that the NATO Summit has been taking place, and Joe Biden, well, he took questions from the press at a so-called big boys press conference. Oh my goodness. Who the heck thought that title up? Big boys press conference. I don't think that does much for his image, and it's just a really stupid thing to call it, frankly. But anyway, I thought that Joe did quite a good job. You may be surprised to hear that. I thought he did as good a job as he's done on average over the last 4 years or so. Let's look at a few clips and I will explain what I mean, although ultimately I have more to add, as you may already have guessed. So let's look at this clip.
I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence be declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion.
Now, if you hadn't heard about a lot of the opinions that are now swirling around, or there are more of them swirling around about Joe and his ability to do the job, and you just watch that, you would think, yeah, it's somebody who's older, he looks older, sounds older, fluffed, the articulation a little bit, but okay, fair enough. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's then look at this clip.
Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
And you see, I thought that was a really sharp and pithy pushback immediately from Joe Biden to what was a very pointed question. Just to be clear, by the way, George Clooney isn't a lawmaker. The way that question was phrased, it could have left you with that impression. But he could be a lawmaker. I mean, he's got the hair for it. My goodness, with hair like that, he could be president. Let's look at another clip.
The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. Once more, a reasonable riposte. And he's having to clear his throat a little bit, probably because he's been talking more than he would normally have done in a concentrated period of time. And fair enough, it is a reasonable answer. It is a reasonable, as I say, riposte. Let's look at this clip. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now. Okay, so again, he's making a good point, but people have picked up on this strange whisper that is a habit of his. And you see, I don't think that he's doing that because of anything wrong vocally. I think there are times when he is finding it hard to not only articulate the words, but also to maintain a level of volume, and maybe that's because something else is going on. But here, this is stagecraft. You're looking at an old pugilist. He knows how to punch and counterpunch and the strategies that are useful in debates. And somebody's probably told him a while back, look, if you vary volume and tone, then you can keep the audience engaged and you can draw people in if you begin to whisper. And then they sit forward and think, this is really important. The problem he's got is, again, all the other optics around this that maybe doesn't come across as powerful. But he's doing that deliberately. That's not him suddenly whispering, again, as I've said, because something's wrong vocally. That is a deliberate communication strategy that he's using. May not be advisable at this point in time, but that, in my opinion, was deliberate. Let's look at this clip. Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million. So things are moving. We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large. The corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down, and so I'm optimistic about where things are going.
Once more, without all the baggage, going into this fresh, you would look at him, or I believe I would have looked at him and thought, yep, he's older and maybe not as forceful. He forgot what he was going to say, or couldn't access the word, the 1.5 million. And what was interesting is he realised that, I believe he realised that in the moment, and just kind of, let's just move over that and go on to the next thing. This is someone who's in control and aware some of the time of the slip-ups that he's making. And like I say, he's an old pugilist, so there's definitely a fighting spirit here. Let's look at this clip.
Officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, Putin. I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden.
And here we see the old pugilist at work once more. The lifetime in politics, the lifetime in debates. That's a very, very sharp point that the questioner made about, using the word decline to the president, in front of the president, talking about the president himself. And I thought Biden did a good job. He didn't get angry. He didn't try and shout it down. He could have done, and in some ways that would have been understandable. But instead, what does he do? He flips it around to talk about the conference, how successful it's been, and find me someone, a world leader, who would say that it wasn't.
I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was.
And they probably won't say that because, for all I know, I actually have no access to behind the scenes, but for many of them it would have been successful, not necessarily because of Joe Biden, but it's very clever. It's a very clever way of turning things around. And so maybe he knew about that question beforehand, although perhaps it's been said that he wouldn't, but who knows what actually goes on. But still, he's answering it forcefully, he's turned it around, he didn't get angry, and indeed, I thought once more, if you were coming into this knowing nothing about Biden and what was going on, you'd say, fair answer.
I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Not a joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better.
Once more, the whisper. Again, once more, I thought misplaced. Not a good look or indeed sound.
Knowledge I have.
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting the fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore.
He used one of his strategies, which is the the laugh. Anyway, let's look at this clip, which actually continues straight on after the last one.
I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing.
And I thought when I heard that part that it was really funny. There's a couple of jokes in one there. And what we see is once more Biden in charge, Biden being fully present and also turning it into, well, there's a bit of humour at potentially Donald Trump's expense. So what's not to like? Well, let's look at this clip.
How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or on some matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself. And that is, am I getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's gotten more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None.
And I thought once again that he did a good job with that reply. Turns it around to say, well, look at my track record. And although some of what he has done and the way that he has done it is open to debate, as usual, there are some facts in there that are pretty difficult to argue with. So that once more was a good reply. But you will notice what I've done is I've left out a lot of the so-called gaffes, the things that didn't go quite right. I haven't focused on bits where he's once more found it a little bit tricky to articulate a word. Because here we have this person, as I've mentioned before, who's 81, and if you dealt with him as a neighbour and had him in your home, you would think he was doing really well. The issue is he capable of the presidency? Recently I said, yeah, give him some time. I personally think he should step down, think he probably already should have stepped down, in part because I could see this coming. I could see what is now happening. So let's look at one of the things that he didn't get quite right.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
But he has made mistakes like that before for quite some time. However, the difference here is that, well, people are now talking about it, or I should say more people are now talking about it.
President Biden and his family and his inner circle appear to be in complete denial, not just about whatever might be wrong with him, but the state of his candidacy right now.
Why weren't they doing that months ago? When did it become permissible? Who is the person that presses the button to say that it's allowed now?
And so the first commentator is wondering whether Biden's family and his closest advisors are in some form of denial about what may be going on with Joe Biden and also, the state of his candidacy. Then Russell Brand is commenting about the commentator saying, well, why wasn't this talked about before? How come these people are now saying, hey, Biden may not be up to the job? In fact, a lot of them are now saying he isn't up to the job. Is it someone who pressed the button? Who was it, asked Russell Brand, that allowed this to happen? Well, I don't think that it's one person or a group in the background doing this. I think this has been going on for the 4 years of his presidency. And I think it's only now, because of the bandwagon effect, the critical mass, the fear of missing out, not looking cool and calling out these issues because, a few people more have decided to do so, has added to this frenzy. And I think that's a shame, because he has been making gaffes like that. He has looked a little bit frail and wandered at times for a long time.
It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or political power.
And I have always suspected that the press, or at least part of the press, were not really doing the job for whatever reason. But now, as I've described, Other people are saying this. We better say so now as well. We're seeing this feeding frenzy. And this is what my fear was. This is one of the reasons that I thought Joe Biden should step down. But also, I wanted to give him a chance. And based on his performance, well, you could almost let him continue. But I don't know whether that will happen. If you look at it through the lens of he appears to be doing the job, he's an older person, this is old age or older age, and it's okay though. You know, he recovers. He has these long periods of lucidity. It's fine. Maybe he should go on. But my argument has been from the start that, number one, I think that the cat's now out the bag, and this attack, almost constant now, on him is not good. It's not a good look for the country, and I come back to it is not good for Joe Biden or his family. Got to admire, as I've called them, the old pugilist's resilience and determination to keep on going. It's admirable. But I think now that tipping point has been reached, because as I've said, every single thing that he now does, even if it is a normal slip-up that we all make all the time, will be magnified. And it's a shame that it's ended up this way. And the people who are now talking about it, who should have done a long time ago, and then this could have been somehow nipped in the bud, handled in a different way. But I feel that the tsunami that's engulfing him and the White House right now means that whether his supporters, family, Joe himself like it or not, it is highly likely that he will have to step down. And who replaces him and what that means, well, I guess we'll find out.